Welcome to the Airgun Extra Podcast, brought to you in association with Crackshot, the Southwest's premier airgun centre and ranges. You can check out their website at crackshot.uk and I will pop a link in the description. I'm Matt Manning, and with me today I've got my mate Rich Saunders and our guest Eric Irish from Crackshot. Now we've got a lot to talk about. From the British shooting show, we've got Rich and I have been testing some pellets. We've also got an offer to get you some discount on some ammo. We've got a Q&A section. But just to get us into it, we'll have a quick catch-up, what we've been doing shooting-wise over the past few weeks. Rich, do you want to kick us off? What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, it's been rats and squirrels for me almost exclusively. I shoot on a chicken farm, and every 18 months or so, the farmer changes half the flock, and so half the birds go, about 4,000 birds go. And that means that one of the sheds, the chicken sheds, is empty, apart from rats. And I think he takes about 4,000 birds out, and about 5,000 rats come in. And I only get an opportunity for a week or 10 days before the new birds come in. So I've been down there nearly every night shooting rats. And because they're desperate for the chicken feed, the farmer's been putting some chicken feed in the empty house, and the rats have just been flocking to it. So I've been shooting an awful lot of rats and squirrels as well. Spent a lot of time sat freezing myself to death in a hide in the middle of the woods on my own, shooting squirrels. It's interesting because it's a new permission for me, and the numbers have been coming down gradually. And I shot nearly 130, I think, since September.
Right.
So it's been interesting to see the impact on. Obviously, there's 130 fewer squirrels there, but the number of small birds that have been coming back into the feeders now is amazing. And to start with, I wouldn't see any at all. And I went the other day, and there were loads of blue tits, great tits, nuthatches I've just not seen before that are starting to come back into the woods. So that's a good sign. But yeah, rats and squirrels. How about you? What have you been up to, Matt?
To be honest with you, much the same. The usual lots and lots of grey squirrel control in freezing cold woodland, sat around in the hide. I mean, it's definitely improved as the weather's got colder. The squirrels are getting hungrier. They're more abundant around the feeders. And I've noticed, again, the same with the rats. Last year, for me, last winter, the ratting didn't really get going, if I'm honest. I had a few decent evenings, but it was never really busy. But this year, we've had obviously a lot of wet weather. So low-lying ground, the rats have been pushed up from low-lying ground. We've now had a pretty significant cold snap. And yeah, there are lots of rats around on the farms. So yeah, so far it's been a good winter's ratting and squirrel control. Haven't shot rabbits for quite some time. They were making a good comeback on a lot of my ground through the summer. Less abundant now, but then they always tend to be through the winter months when they're not breeding anyway. What about you, Eric? I assume your shooting life has been confined largely to the shop over the last week or two.
Yeah, it has. I've been in a nice warm and dry for all over Christmas. We've had our usual people up on the range. We've been coaching a lot of people, setting up people's scopes, helping them zero in. So there's a lot of shooting going on there. And I did have a day out the other day, not with an air rifle. I was actually out with a shotgun. I was out on a little DIY pheasant shoot. Great day out, and nice to get out with mates in the fresh air.
It's always good to get out. And I tell you what, it's easy to moan about cold weather, but my goodness, I'd rather have a cold day out shooting than a wet day out shooting. I'm appreciating the fact that at least it is relatively dry at the moment. And in fact, though, you mentioned the helping people on the ranges at the shop, and obviously what an asset for local shooters around your way at the moment to have indoor ranges where they can shoot in that warmth and comfort.
Oh yeah, they can come in. We'll have some people come from the local clubs. They go to the club, do an hour, get really cold, drive over here, jump in the warm, and continue their shooting.
My mum bought me, I say my mum, I bought it for her to give to me for Christmas. a hide heater, and it's a little camping heater, and it's brilliant. Just takes the aerosol gas things in there, and popped it in the hide, turned it on low. It's fantastic. Didn't want to get out at the end of the day.
Sounds brilliant. Because I tell you what,
Yeah.
I think I've whinged about it before. I get Raynaud's, and if I'm out in the cold for very long, my fingers go like a yellowy white and completely lose all feeling. And there have been days when I've had to pack up shooting and come home because I literally can't feel the trigger, or I've been trying to use my left hand because my right, frustratingly, my right index finger goes first, then the next finger, then the next finger. So either I'm trying to use the trigger with the wrong finger or the wrong hand. But yes, sometimes if it gets really bad, I do have to pack up, which is really annoying. And I'm always experimenting with different things, and I've never found anything that's taken proper care of it, to be honest with you, because also I like to wear gloves that give me plenty of feeling, so I don't want great big thick gloves on. Maybe a heater is the way to go. But look, moving on, I mentioned the British Shooting Show, which is looming large now.
Yeah.
It's grown into an amazing event. So many brands under one roof. It's a great opportunity for those of us in the industry to catch up. What are you going to be up there, Rich, and what are you most excited about?
So I'm going to be up there the full 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And as you say, it's just a good opportunity to meet up with folks that you normally only ever talk to over the phone or via email. So it's good to meet them face to face. There's always some new stuff coming out, and it always seems like I was impressed last year, or amazed last year, by the number of night vision products that came out last year from companies I never even heard of. So I'm going to make more of an effort to get around them this time and see what they're doing. I'm probably going to camp out on the DayState stand or the DayState BRK MTC stand for a couple of days, somewhere to put my bag and my coat. And it's always good to catch up with those guys. And then I'm also probably going to spend the Sunday with the guys at Scott Country International. So to go through all of their toys that they've got as well. So if anyone's going to the show and wants to pop by, that's where I'll be, and I'd love to have a chat with you. How about you, Matt? When are you going up?
Again for the whole thing. So is it Friday the 14th? It's
Yes.
Valentine's Day, isn't it? Which makes us all very popular. I think it is the 14th. Anyway, so I'm there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to my wife's great joy. And yeah, for me, it's just a great opportunity, as you've mentioned, get around looking at all that new kit that's on show, catch up with people like yourself and like Eric, because everybody assumes, I think, that we see each other all the time. We live significant distance apart, all of us, in the industry as a whole. And it is a rare opportunity for us to have a proper face-to-face catch up. And obviously, if we're lucky, a few pints each evening as well, which is good fun. And I know somebody that's probably going to be too busy to be boozing it up in the evenings. Eric, it's a crazy one for you, isn't it? The British Shooting Show. It's a busy few days.
Yeah, it is. It's we travel up first thing Thursday, build the stand, stock the stand, get it all looking ship shape, ready for the 3 days of absolute madness. But it's great. It really is. It allows us to promote Crackshot to the entire country. But being down here in the southwest, it's there's a lot of a country that we don't get to see.
And are you selling stuff from your stand as well, Eric?
Yes, yeah, we'll have probably about 250 guns there, from top end field target setups right down to your little CO2 pistol and everything else in between.
And I'm going to ask, because I know people watching this will be asking, any kind of special show deals that you'll be doing?
Yeah, there'll be a deal on. We ran a deal last year where if you buy a gun, you'll get 25% off any Hawk or MTC scope.
And obviously, Eric, the big one is the draw as well, isn't it? Can you tell us all about this? Because this has been going on for a little while now, hasn't it? But tell us what it's about and how it works and what people can win most significantly.
Okay, right, yeah. This year is our 10th anniversary. So we ran an event for our 5th anniversary and raised just over £2,000. All goes to charity. This year we've selected 2 local charities. One is the Children's Hospice Southwest, and the other is the Devon Clinic, which is a mental health charity. So we've donated it's an Air Arms Ultimate Sporter in a form rifle stock. You see it just behind me. You just see the bottom edge of the gun right at the very top. Then we've also been, some of our suppliers, that we work with have been very generous as well. We've got a Brillcop Ghost. We've got a BSA, one of the new BSA Lightnings. We've got a Wolfer Rotex kit. There's a flash, the Hatsan flash kit as well, along with we have a donation from Range Right as well, which is they've given us the Reximex, and we've got a Hawk scope, we've got a Falcon scope, some pellets, some caps. Oh, we've got a silencer as well. There's a whole lot of prizes there.
Wow, that certainly sounds like it.
It's £10 a ticket. They'll be available at the show. The draw will be made on the Sunday, late on the Sunday afternoon, and we're selling tickets beforehand. So they're all, you can go onto our website. If you just in the search box, just put in prize, and it will bring you up the link to the prize draw. You can buy tickets there, and like I said, everyone's name goes in the box, and then the draw will be made on Sunday afternoon.
For people that obviously can't get to the British Shooting Show or want to get tickets, they can buy them online, can't they? And in fact, a while ago, there is a piece in the news section on the Airgun Extra website, so airgunextra.com, where we've got hunting and review articles. There's also a news section, and you'll see a picture of Eric with the air arms gun he's mentioned. If you click on that, I think there is a link to where you can get those tickets. And in fact, something else I've just remembered about the British Shooting Show. We were talking about seeing new kit. And by the time this podcast goes out, actually, there will probably be a little bit more information out about it. But DayState will be unveiling a brand new, completely new PCP. And this is, it's not just another edition of an existing gun. It is a completely new gun. As I say, there will likely be more information out about it by the time this podcast broadcast, but at the moment, we can't say any more about that. So that's going to be one of the highlights, and something I'm certainly excited about seeing in the flesh.
So I've seen the gun, but I'm not allowed to say any more than that.
I was going to say, you're not. I have had a glimpse, but I'm also looking forward to seeing people's reaction to it. Actually, that's another very exciting thing about going to these shows, and you probably find out the same thing with customers. It's a great opportunity to see how people are actually reacting to things, not just what's out there, but what people are gravitating towards, how they're reacting to it, how they think they can incorporate it into their shooting. It's fascinating stuff. Eric, we need to move on and talk about our pellet testing. We'll let you go now, but thank you ever so much for your time. And we will definitely catch up with you at the British Shooting Show.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Eric.
Yes. Cheers, Rich. Cheers, Matt.
All right.
We'll catch you at the show.
Right then, so these pellets, some time ago, Adrian at iHunter sent Rich and myself some pellets to test. They were Rifle RTX pellets, I think, and it was my first experience of rifle pellets, made in Brazil. They were really good quality ammo. I think Rifle's even got Olympic gold medal winning pedigree. So yeah, these were impressive. Adrian has sent us some more ammo to try, and he's actually sent us a discount code. So if you're tempted to try any of the rifle pellets that we're going to talk about, if you go to the iHunter website and use the discount code RIFLE10, and I think that's rifle with a capital R and then 10 as a figure 10. I will put it in the description, but that will get you a 10% discount, but also iHunter does discount for bulk purchases, so it's cheaper to buy. You get more of a discount rather if you buy 3 tins or 5 tins or 10 tins. So you also get that discount as well as the one that we're offering. It is a brilliant website full of information, lots of detail about each of the ammo, and also very, very straightforward to navigate. The first ones that I tried, it's a classic wad cutter type flathead pellet. Ones I've been trying, 22 caliber, 5.5 millimeter, weighs 16.51 grains, and the standard price for one tin is $9.99 for 250. And as I mentioned, there is that discount for multiple tins, and also the offer that I've mentioned. So I tried these actually through my sub 12. I've got 2 DayState Huntsman Safaris, one in 177, one in 22. So I was using the sub 12 2.2, and so they grouped pretty tightly at 20 meters, and the groups looked like that and like that, and they are 13 and 14 millimeters from center to center. As I said, that was 20 meters. Pushing out to 25, I wasn't entirely surprised because it's a flat-headed pellet, and the groups did open it up a little bit then, and weren't really what I'd regard as an effective round for hunting. Not quite tight enough. It's that drag of the flathead, I would imagine. But the tight grouping at 20 meters, that would be a heck of a slap with a flathead for a ratting pellet.
Well, funny enough, yeah, I took them out ratting last night. In actual
Brilliant.
fact, in my Ghost, and I used to use flatheads as a kid occasionally, but yeah, in a spring, and I used to miss everything. But I remember as a kid, it was always the sort of the wisdom was flathead pellets for ratting at close distance is the way to go. So I did it, and so I was shooting only probably 12, 13 yards most of the time, and I took my BRK Ghost and an AGT Vixen, obviously both 2.2. And yeah, I mean, how dead do you want a rat to be? But yeah, I found them very, very good over that short distance. And yeah, it certainly bowled the rats over, stopped them in their tracks. I quite liked them, actually.
Yeah, because I must admit, I'm always of the opinion that as long as you put a pellet in the right place, you will get, or you ought to get, a clean kill. However, at those extremely close ratting ranges, I often use 177 for sub 12, and rats, you shoot them in the head, they are dead, but they tend to flip about a lot. And I've noticed when I've been out ratting with 2.2, it's probably no more of a clean kill, but it does snuff them out generally more quickly. And I'd imagine, therefore, that would be increased with a flat-headed pellet that delivers even more shock.
And sometimes when you catch a rat just right, it almost makes like a popping sound.
Yeah.
It seemed to be happening on every single shot with these. It really did it's like hitting a watermelon with a cricket bat.
Yeah, a real slap. Real slap.
Definitely.
So the next one that I tried out, it was through the Huntsman again, and that was the Rifle ProMax. It's a classic domed, wasted pellet, sort of pellet that I tend to use for 90% of my shooting. So again, 2.2 caliber, 5.5 mil. They weigh 14.5 grains and cost £8.99 for a tin of 250. So as I said, again, I was running them through the Huntsman. Got some really good groups with these, actually. 30-meter group there. That one was 11 millimeters from center to center. 40-meter group there.
Yeah.
16 millimeters from center to center. I'll be honest with you, I'm showing you the best groups here, but they are in all fairness, pretty typical. They're pretty standard for what I was getting with these. So yeah, very, very tight at 30 meters and still headshot tight at 40 meters. Did you manage to get it with these, Rich?
Yeah, I did. I took these on the range as well and got groups kind of similar to yours, although I didn't go out as far as 40 meters. and I ran mine through an FX DRS, my Ghost carbine again, and an R12. And yeah, I've found them very good. They're relatively light pellets for a 2.2, so nice and quick through the air. Obviously, they're quite short pellets, and I didn't find that was an issue. The only thing I had to do on my on the BRK Ghost was make sure that the pellets were pushed quite far down into the magazine. If I didn't do that, then sometimes they wouldn't index quite properly.
Yeah, I found that with the cutters, actually. Good point. That I had to make sure they were thumbed in properly so that the mag would index correctly.
But in terms of accuracy and performance, no problems at all. As good as any other 2.2 pellet that I run through the guns. I think probably, if anything, the DRS probably liked them the most. But I would have no hesitation in using them in the other rifles as well to hunt with. No trouble at all.
And I think that you mentioned that the DRS really liked them, and that's an important point that everybody needs to bear in mind with airgun pellets is different guns like different ammo. So take what we say as a guide, but potentially different things could be happening by the time you run them through your gun, and it can be guns that literally, run off the same production line one after another, can have different preferences in terms of ammo. So take what we say as a starting point, but you always need to get out and try a few for yourself. And funnily enough, I know the iHunter website, they do sample packs. So rather than splashing out on full tins of pellets, you can try a few of the smaller sample packs and find out the ones that suit your gun best. The next one was the Thunder. And that, as you can see, is the sort of elongated bullet type pellet. These are £10.49 for 200, but of course they're a bit of a heavier pellet. You're getting more material. This is a 25.3 grain pellet in 2.2 caliber. My group. So I ran this through my FAC rated BRK Ghost because, as I've said, they're 25 grain plus. It's a pellet that I would regard as being for a high-powered airgun, round about 40 foot-pounds. And this is a 50-meter group.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I got at 50 meters. And that measured 23 millimeters center to center. And what I will say is also, the previous groups, I shot very carefully from a bench. This was out in the field, off of a bipod, on my belly. I shot a couple of groups fairly quickly. So yeah, that's sub 1 inch at 50 meters without too much fiddling about. I think that's a pretty good group.
Is that a full magazine, Matt, or is it?
No, that's 5 shots. Yes, that's 5 shots. In fact, the card tour, it probably doesn't do it full justice because you can see the card tour a little bit. But it is a slightly horizontally sort of stretched group rather than a vertically stretched group. Whether that was wind, whether that was the ammo, whether that was me, we will never know. Do you get to run a few of these?
I did. I spent a little bit of time putting these through my Vixen, AGT Vixen, an FAC rifle, 2.2 rifle, and yeah, I got good performance with that as well. Did you try the 177s though?
No, I didn't get a chance to try the 177s.
So the 177s, they're, as you would expect, they're like a smaller version of the 2.2 ones. That same kind of like sort of almost sort of column shape design. 13.43 grains, and I've got a mate of mine who has an FAC powered Sniper XR, and I said to him, try these in there, and they went really well in that. He was shooting, 1 inch spinners at 50 meters out in the open, no trouble at all, one after another. So they went really, really well. And it's, I've never owned a 177 FAC rifle because I think you get up to that sort of 900 feet per second magic kind of number pretty quickly with that. But these being a bit heavier, he was still getting, about 18 foot-pounds from them. And that went really, really well in them. So if you have an FAC 177, the caveat of try lots of different pellets, as we said before, but if you haven't given these a try, give them a go because they really did go well.
We also got sent some slugs, which I'll be brutally honest, I haven't had a chance to get out and try these because I would say when it comes to slug ammo, in my experience, it's not just about picking the right ammo. It's about then setting your gun up to get the perfect velocity. You need the right barrel, and I simply haven't had the time to sit down and do proper testing to do these slugs justice. But they're Lynx slugs. They looked very tidy.
They do.
That's the tin, and they've got the classic sort of hollow point dum slug that most of us tend to be familiar with. But they've also got I think they call it the full cone. Yeah, the dome obviously hasn't got that dimple in it. Did you get a chance to do anything with those, Rich?
I did. I ran them through a Delta Wolf, an FAC Delta Wolf in 2.2, and also what was the other? Oh, my FX Impact 2.2, both FAC rifles again. And yeah, I mean, like you, I don't shoot slugs very often, and I just can't get my mind around the intricate fine tuning that I think you need to do to get the best out of slugs. And I've always found pellets do the job for me at the kind of distances I shoot anyway. But these slugs were as good, if not slightly better, as any other slugs that I've shot. And that was with an untuned setup. It's just my regular kind of pellet setup. So I think that if I was clever enough and had the time, with a little bit of tweaking on the rifle, especially on the Delta Wolf, where you can go in and really tweak the settings on that, I think that they would work pretty well. Yeah. And I always sort of judge a pellet initially, I know it's not a scientific thing at all, but when you open the tin and you just see the cleanliness of them and the lack of any kind of swarf in the bottom of the tin or anything like that, these all look beautifully finished, uniform skirt on them, such as it is. There's no sort of chunks out of them, and they look really, really good. So yeah, I have every reason to believe they would perform really well if you're into slug shooting.
Yeah, no, and it is very, very, very tidy ammo. And in fact, going back to the pellets, the first time round when we tried the RTX, because it does take some doing to get most of us away from the familiar brands that we've been using and trusting for years. And the first thing to strike me when I looked into that tin of rifle pellets was how clean, consistent, and uniform they looked. And however much difference it makes on the range, just to feel that confidence that you've got some consistent, tidy ammo, it's a really good starting point.
Yeah, I use those. I forget what was it, the RTX ones that we had before. I used them on a squirrel trip on a new permission. First time I went on it a few months back, and I took 17 shots and I put 17 squirrels down. I didn't miss once, and I'm not saying that I'm a genius, but 25 meters from a rest you should do, but they didn't miss at all. No follow-up shots, no nothing. So yeah, that tells me everything I need to know about a pellet.
Good stuff. Well, like I say, if anybody wants to give any of those rifle pellets a try, the discount code is Rifle10, and I will pop it into the description. If we move along now to our Q&A section, and that is in association with Anglia Tackle and Gun. They stock a huge range of air guns and accessories. Their website is angliatackleandgun.co.uk. Do take a look at that. Not yet, though, because like I say, we've got these questions to answer. So, Rich, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I've got a question from Pete England, and it's a very topical one, and one I've been involved in quite a bit myself recently. He asks, how do you go about using a bait station for grey squirrel control? I know, Matt, you do an awful lot of grey squirrel shooting like I do. So what's your sort of, imagine you've got a brand new permission, never been there before. What's your approach with regards to bait stations?
I try to be a little bit methodical about it. And I know you've written about this actually in an article that I've literally just put up on the Airgun Extra website. So yeah, I try and sort of think of the woodland in terms of zones and try and work on one zone or maybe two zones at a time. And I certainly don't like to have more than 2 feeders going at once, for the simple fact I hate the thought of feeding them in one area while I'm sat in another. It seems to be counterproductive. So once I've chosen a zone or a sector of the woods I want to target, I will look for an area. Maybe I've spotted more squirrels there than somewhere else in that particular spot, so I'm trying to sort of narrow that zone down. Or I'll be looking for squirrely signs. So drays, thick ivy, nice interconnecting trees, the sort of habitat that squirrels like. And that is where I'll want to site that feeder. I'll put it on a tree that's hopefully nicely connected to other trees, because I do think it's good to have that access. Obviously, squirrels travel a lot on the ground, but also through the branches, through interlocking trees. I'll set up my feeder, usually high enough off of the ground to keep it out of the way of deer, but low enough that I can fill it up. Obviously, these days I'm often using the Keith's High Seats feeder, which is absolutely brilliant. But because it's quite long, once I've got the sort of feeder part, or the feed tray at a certain height, the length of it makes it really hard for me to lift a sack of peanuts up to fill it. So I tend to use a scoop these days. Anyhow, attach the feeder. How I attach the feeder depends on whether, if the landowner's, if it's a low value tree and the landowner's happy, I'll nail it. If it's a tree of timber value, I'll use rope or cable so it's not invasive to the tree. And then I'll load up that feeder, usually with peanuts, and I'll leave it. I'll go back 4 or 5 days later. Hopefully the peanuts have gone down. Hopefully there are those orangey brown skins on the deck that the squirrels don't like to eat. It's a really good sign that you've got squirrels visiting. That being the case, I'll fill it back up again. And once I know it's getting some attention, I'll build my hide no more than 25 meters away. A nice clear view of the feeder. Keep filling. I don't want the feeder to run empty, because I do fear then that the squirrels that I've initially attracted are going to back away and possibly find another food source. So I make sure that the squirrels that are visiting know that that's a dependable food source. So I keep it topped up, and then it's usually a fortnight before I first shoot it. But if the feed is really going down fast and it's getting expensive, I might shoot it after a week or 10 days. But usually I like to think 2 weeks, because initially those odd 1 or 2 squirrels that are visiting initially, their activity attracts the attention of other squirrels, and it just snowballs. And I think if you've got 1 or 2 squirrels visiting in the early days and you wallop them quickly because you can't wait, I think you then lose that activity that creates that real cluster of attraction. And it's usually that first visit, isn't it? If you've got it right, you've got the right spot, you've given them time to build. That first shoot, it's nothing to shoot 12, 15 squirrels in 2 or 3 hours. And then obviously after that session, I top the feeder back up, keeping it topped up, keep shooting that one feeder. And the hope being that if I say I shot 15 the first visit, let's hope it's fewer. Let's hope it's 10 or 11 the next time, 7 or 8, 5 or 6, so on and so on. And then I'll go until it's 1 or none, and then move on and target another area and start over again. Now, obviously, you've created a vacuum and squirrels will move back into it. Yeah. But for most of us, the target is to thin them out significantly. You're not going to shoot the last one. But yeah, that's pretty much how I go about it. In fact, I'm just about to write an article. We've been doing the photos today. Hopefully it will be on the Airgun Extra website by the time this goes out. But if not, it's imminent. So yeah, and anything much different? I know you use trail cams quite a lot, don't you?
I do, yeah. And I just going back to the Keith's feeders for a second. They're the type that have this lid on them, and it's been interesting because I've not used lidded feeders before now, but because these ones are quite away from me, I wanted to try and keep the peanuts in there as long as possible and focus them just on squirrels. And it's interesting to me how many squirrels have obviously been to the feeder before. They've worked out the whole lid thing, and then they're to lift the lid, get in there, get a peanut. And then it's, by the same token, it's interesting how many squirrels come to the feeder when I'm sat there and have clearly never been there before because they can't work out the lid. And they get quite frustrated. They can smell the peanuts and they're kind of bashing around, but they can't. And I've had, it's frustrating because often they won't settle and you can't get a shot.
Yeah.
But, when I first started shooting on this, on a new permission just recently, every other squirrel was like that. And they'd never been there before and they couldn't work out what's going on. Now, once in a blue moon, I'll get a squirrel that has never been to the area before and can't work out the lid. So that's always a good indication as to whether you're shooting a kind of a very local population or whether you've got new squirrels coming in to the area for the first time and coming across the feeder for the first time. I tend to put I sort of trust the luck a little bit more, and I tend to put my feeders up and my hide at the same time and just hope that I've got them in the right place. I don't have to move two things, simply because to my mind, if they're used to seeing the hide there, and I know you tend to use screen hides a lot more, whereas I tend to use little kind of tenty hides. And then trail cameras. It's a relatively recent thing for me. I've invested in a couple of Zeiss trail cameras and also a HIC Micro one. And they're the kind that will beam a photograph back to your phone or your device or whatever every time it's triggered. And it's a really good way not only of determining just how many squirrels are on your feeder and what times they feed, but also it tells me when the feeders are empty, because all of a sudden the activity dies away again. And it's really good. It can be quite irritating because there are times when my phone is going ping, 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 ping every few minutes. But you can switch them off. You can pause transmission for hours at a time and what have you. Otherwise, you'll just go through all the photographs. But trail cameras have been a real revelation for me. And it also just gives you so much confidence when you eventually get around to doing the shooting, knowing that your feeder has seen lots of activity on it. And it also picks up other visitors. So going back to your point about deer and needing to avoid the deer, I had some trail cam footage the other day of a badger desperately climbing up the tree to try and get to the peanut feed. Fortunately, I put it about a foot too high for him. But if a badger was able to get hold of your peanut feed, I think it'd just tear it apart.
I've noticed that sometimes, like you, I will lean some fallen branches in just to create sort of an easier access for the squirrels. But sometimes I'll go back and the branches are on the deck. Now, that's either been knocked down by frustrated deer or, again, by badgers trying to pull their way up there and knocking the branches down. Definitely
the badgers on my tree, because like you, the branches have been knocked sideways and they're big branches.
Yeah, but another, you make a good point about the feeders with lids. Firstly, I find how many peanuts they must be saving me.
Yeah.
Because I'm shooting the same numbers of squirrels, but I'm using fewer peanuts than when I had that open feed tray.
Yeah.
And also, it kind of stresses that point of not shooting your feeders too quickly, because if you've got a couple of savvy squirrels visiting that know how to work the lid, then my assumption is that those green ones that turn up and don't know how to will see them and they will learn from them. So then you've got all of the squirrels able to come and dine. Now, bait-wise, I've never... I get flack for this occasionally on YouTube from people saying, why are you using expensive peanuts? I use wheat, I use this, I use that and the other. And I have never used a bait that's got more pulling power than peanuts. I've done side-by-side tests with even with a feeder with easier access with what I regard as the inferior bait and a lid on the peanuts, and the squirrels will still take the trouble of opening the lid to take a peanut rather than the open maize or sunflower hearts. And I know people say to me, if squirrels are hungry, they'll eat anything, and that's absolutely true. But I want to get 100% out of my time in the hide. And I think I don't want squirrels thinking there might be some acorns over here or a pheasant feeder over there. I want them, all of the squirrels in that area, to be thinking, if I go to that feeder, I'm going to get the peanuts, and that's what I want the most. Because then when I spend my hours sat in the hide, I'm most confident that time is being used to its absolute optimum. And you found anything different?
Yeah, I've always used peanuts because, like you, they've just never let me down. But your point about squirrels will eat anything, and they are incredibly selective. And I remember I spent a day with I'm sure you know him, a guy called Ian Hampton, who was a squirrel ranger for the Cornwall Red Squirrel Project. And I spent a day with him going around his traps and his feeders and what have you. And he used maize because he just had so many feeding stations around. Maize was cheaper, and he could always tell if squirrels had been on the feeder as opposed to birds, because the squirrels would just chew out the little white kernel at the bottom of the maize seed and then throw the rest of the seed, the yellow part, away, because the kernel was that much more nutritious, whereas the birds would just take the whole lot. So they're very and the way that they would nibble out this triangle was surgical precision. So they will eat anything, but given the choice, they will be selective in what they eat. And peanuts has always done it for me, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, my line is peanuts are expensive, but I still think they're the best value for pounds spent to squirrels shot. I don't think anything gives you better value. And in fact, another point I just want to quickly mention, because time's moving on and we need to move on, but another brilliant thing about using feeding stations for grey squirrel shooting is the fact that not only are you creating like this honeypot area where you're getting more action than you're likely to get anywhere else, but you're shooting over a predetermined distance. And if you use a PCP, you're probably also shooting off of sticks or some kind of gun support. So it's such a humane and straightforward way to shoot squirrels. And if you're just starting out and you can only group tightly out to 18 meters, just build a hide 18 meters away from your feeder, because sit still and quiet. When those squirrels are onto those peanuts, they will visit that feeder with you sat 17, 18, 19 meters away, whatever range you need to be, within reason. So should we move on to the next question, Rich? What have you got next?
Yeah, so this comes from Gordon West. Another really good question, actually. So he says, so many shooters are using sophisticated night vision and thermal kit for shooting after dark. Do you think there is too much technology in our sport these days? I know you and I love a gadget, although we're not very clever, but we do love a gadget. But what do you think? Too much technology or not enough?
I wouldn't say there's not enough, but I wouldn't say there's too much, because I think it's kind of self-regulating. You don't have to use it. Sometimes it is a frustration. Sometimes I've got 3 or 4 different things charging in my office now that I need to make sure the batteries are doing what they need to do. Otherwise, when I go out rat shooting tomorrow night, nothing's going to work. That is a pain. And when you get out in the field and something electronic doesn't work, it is a massive pain. And I would say, and I often say, if you want a really tight budget, lamping still works as well as it ever did. It hasn't got worse since night vision and thermal came along. It's still an option, and it's still effective. However, thermal and night vision are in a different league. They are a little bit more complicated, but they're getting simpler to use all the time. They are more expensive, but they're getting more affordable all the time. And like those peanuts versus the cheaper baits, the pounds spent to rats shot, I would argue that possibly now the expensive, sophisticated tech delivers better value than the cheap lamp, because I know places where I was going out years ago and shooting, let's say, 10 or 15 rats in a night and thinking I'd done a brilliant job. Visit farms now where I reckon what you see, the signs of rats are the same, so you're probably dealing with a similar sized population. But now I'd go there and I might shoot 30, 40, 50 rats. And it's just because we've got that stealth. We're there under the cover of absolute darkness, yet we can see. What's your feeling on it?
I mean, I do a lot of pest control and hunting, as you know, and I think that I owe it to my quarry to be as good as I can possibly be to effect the most humane kills that I possibly can. And I just know that certain technology gives me an edge. If I went out with a Springer yeah, I'm sure I'd shoot a few rats and squirrels, but the chances are I wouldn't shoot as many, and I wouldn't shoot them as cleanly as I do with my PCP. So I use a PCP. I think night vision and thermal is the one area of our sport that has just taken off incredibly over the last few years. And it doesn't seem like that much ago that we were using the old, do you remember the night sight, camera in a rubber tube on the back of your scope and a screen on top and wires everywhere and then strap a battery on and everything. It's only a few years ago that we were using that. Now you jump forward, I'm going to say 7 years, and we're using infrared scopes with ballistic calculators, laser rangefinders. I've been using the DNT Optics Thermite an awful lot for the last few months, and I'm just so impressed with it. So going back to what we were talking about at the start of the episode about rat shooting on my chicken farm, I was using a BRK Ghost. Now the Ghost has got like a raised rail on it, and then which makes any scope kind of a little bit higher, and then the Thermite is quite a high scope anyway. So the gap between the barrel and the scope was quite big. So I used the ballistic calculator, and if anyone's not familiar with that, you basically enter some data into one of the menus in the scope, pellet weight, speed, ballistic coefficient, that kind of stuff, and it calculates the hold off for you. Now I use that on rats between about 8 meters away and 22, 23 meters away, and some of the hold off that was indicated was almost kind of off the reticle because of the height of the scope from the gun. But you know what? It dropped me onto target every single time, and I hit every single rat as cleanly as if it had been bang on my zero distance. Now, I don't know whether I could have done that with a lamp and a scope at those different distances. So yeah, I think it seems to me like the multispectral scopes are the next big thing. The sort of the Thermite model, and I love the fact that you can swap over to a thermal image when you're on aim to track where something has just moved from. And so yeah, I'm all for the technology. Can't begin to claim to understand it, but give me enough time, I'll fiddle around the buttons and get it going. And then, yeah, as you say, every now and then you get a frustration of a flat battery or something's just gone wonky. But it seems to be happening less and less often now. And on balance, I'd always use the best tech I possibly could, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's about effective and humane pest control. And it's not sometimes you get the criticism of it not being sporting, and it's like, well, and it's the same with using feeding stations. My aim is not to be sporting; it's to be as effective as I can in terms of pest control and as humane as I can in terms of delivering swift kills. So, if you get too sporting, you start to wound a lot. What do you want to do to be super sporting? So, shall I stand on one leg and tie one arm behind my back? Because if you're a real purist, use a stick, hit them with a stick. So you can't stop the advance of technology. Yes, it needs to be within reason. It needs to be within the realms of sensibility in terms of practical use and in affordability, justifying that price for the shooting you do and the use you'll get and from the money that you've got to spend. There's no point in sacrificing the family holiday so that you can have a swanky night vision. Well, I wouldn't get away with it, but it's about justifying the outlay relative to what you've got to spend.
Well, the interesting thing is, I can remember those night vision products 6, 7, 8 years ago. You could spend 700-800 quid on one of those. Now, 700-800 quid now will get you a pretty blinking good digital IR scope with a ballistic calculator and a rangefinder. So, in relative terms, the prices haven't moved that much, but the technology has got significantly better.
No, that's fair comment. In fact, the technology and what we've been talking about leads us on quite nicely to the next question. Now, this is from a young shooter called Lewis, who I think he's only in his teens, so therefore his budget is limited. And he's actually contacted me on Instagram, and and he's looking to buy his first thermal spotter.
Right.
And very simple question: can you get a decent thermal spotter without spending a fortune? Now, you've been doing a bit of research into this area at the moment, haven't you, Rich? So I'll leave this one to you.
Yeah, very timely question, Lewis, because I'm actually writing a group test on spotters that cost less than £1,000 for the Airgun Extra website, which should be out. I don't know whether it will be out before this podcast or shortly afterwards, but soon. So I've been playing with 4 different thermals that cost less than £1,000. Now, £1,000 is still a fair chunk of change, to be perfectly honest. And I think the thing to bear in mind is that it seems to me that anything that's thermal related, the more you pay, the higher specification the thermal sensor will be, and therefore the more defined and clean the image will be. So, if you go up to some of these sort of £4,000 or £5,000 thermal binoculars, oh my God, the image through them is just incredible. You can see grass, thermal, images of grass at 40, 50 meters. You can see bugs and moths flying around and stuff. It's just incredible. The lower down you get, obviously the cheaper or the lower specification the thermal sensor is, and therefore by definition the image is going to get a little fuzzy. Now, in this £1,000 budget that we set for this group test, there are some products that are right up against that £1,000 limit, and they're very good. The image is certainly passable and acceptable for identifying quarry at airgunning ranges. Not as crisp as your £5,000 thermal, but very, very usable. When you start going down that scale and get to sort of the £400 or £500 mark, you do lose definition in the image that you're seeing. But the thing is, if you're shooting at night, then you're probably going to be using an IR scope.
And I think he is.
And well, that's good, because so all you need then from a thermal is to tell you there's something over there that might be a rat, and it's worth you looking at through your IR scope. So you might not get the crisp definition and see how many whiskers the rat's got on it, but it will tell you there's a white heat source or black heat source over there. It's worth checking out. Now, if you didn't have a thermal spotter, you wouldn't know whether there's a rat there or not because it's pitch black. So I would say, yes, as long as you set your expectations properly, cheaper thermals definitely do work because they will indicate the presence of a potential target enough for you to be able to check it out with your IR scope. So look out for that feature, Lewis, and hopefully that'll give you a few more pointers.
Yeah, no, I would agree entirely with that, because, and another thing I say is don't be too distracted by looking for powerful magnification, because I tend to wind mine down as low as I can because I want a wide field of view, and the image quality, because you're spotting over airgun ranges, all you're looking for is blobs where quarry or potential quarry is, and as you say, you move over to your nice sharp infrared, so you've been alerted by the spotter, it's done its job, and then you've got your clarity for your identification and your precise shot placement. You don't need the whistles and bells. And also, I would say, Lewis, do try to get your hands on one and have a look through it before you part with your money, if you can. We can guide you, but I think if you're paying significant, what to you is significant money for something, it's worth having a look, making sure that it does the kind of thing that you hope it would do and need it to do. Before you part with
get yourself down to the shooting show, Lewis. There'll be plenty of thermal spotters to look at there.
Yeah, that would be a great opportunity. Well, that brings us to the end of the Q&A section. So thanks again to Anglia Tackle and Gun, angliatackleandgun.co.uk, and they are also on Facebook. Brings us to the end of the podcast, actually. So I want to say thanks again to Crackshot. As with Anglia Tackle and Gun, they are on Facebook. I will put their web details in the description. Thanks to you, Rich, for your time. Thank you to everybody for tuning in, and we will hopefully be back with more in about a month. So we will see you then, if we don't catch up with you at the British Shooting Show.